Another story on the news just broke. A father just died from being choked. Just like an innocent boy with a toy got killed, and a teen with his hands up was shot against his will, and another teen was shot in his family's neighborhood because he was wearing a hood and armed with Skittles. We are in the middle of a 100-year-long crisis. There have been thousands of cases like this. We can start to become desensitized. It's become more about sides than about lives. A life was taken too soon. That's the sad fact. And some people try to justify it because that life was black. Do they understand the message that sends to you and me when a man can clearly kill an innocent teen and get off scot-free? Do they understand that we're not heartbroken because that's 1 point for the whites? We're outraged because black or not, what happened wasn't right. These black men were someone's son, someone's dad, and someone's future husband. These black men all had mothers who truly loved them. These black men were murdered and reduced to nothing more than the color of their skin. Tell me, when will it end? When will people get real that you can still be racist even if you have one black friend? You might not hate us, you might even like us, but you still subconsciously stereotype us, which could lead to someone losing a life, and that's not casual, even if your racism is. So no longer do we get to brush this off saying it's none of my biz. Because see, that bullet didn't just go through one man. It went through his family and pierced the country. So we can't just have a taste for change. No, we have to be hungry. Don't tell me race isn't a factor. Don't tell me black lives don't matter. Black people deserve their own happily ever after, but we're being killed before we can even make it to that chapter. It's petty, really. Just because of my skin tone, you think it's okay to kill me. An automatic danger because we're browner than you. Isn't it amazing what fear can do? It can make a child seem like a threat and make black skin look like a weapon, make you try to dismiss a death and make you a slave to deception, and it culminates in the lifeless arms that his mother wept in. Who's he, you might ask? Well, that's a good question. There's too many to count, so I've lost track. And before this becomes about white versus black, let me clarify what is the real issue. The problem is this stuff happens and we point fingers instead of grabbing tissue. We don't mourn a human being's unfair fate. They just become a statistic in our national debate. In the nation that dares to call itself united, maybe if we saw these men as our own family, we wouldn't be so divided. Because I have a brother, father, uncles who have personalities, intelligence, hobbies. And it's painful to know that some people may just see them as black bodies. And let me never forget black women, whose black skin also makes them a victim, and who are some of the strongest, most beautiful people this world has ever seen, who carried this community on its back like true queens. Thank you for who you are. Please know how much you mean, because you mean everything. We have to start humanizing black people, otherwise the system will always paint them as disposable, when in fact they are invaluable, necessary, magical, and no, not infallible, but still utterly admirable. That's why I'm proud to be African American, black, colored, Negro. I just sometimes wonder why that's all they see, though. Why is what we look like trumping what we do? Because despite what's in the news, we do a lot of great things. But we aren't people to some, no, we're just playthings. Here to entertain, to shuck and to jive, to dunk and to dive into the end zone. Black people are constantly put in the friend zone when all we want is to be equally treated. Because the truth is, we are equally needed. So we won't settle for anything less. Ignore us, deplore us, we'll keep giving our best. Some think we play the victim card, but think about what you're saying. With all the video evidence, I wish we were playing. Black Lives Matter is more than a trending topic. And you know that we know all lives matter, so stop it. With this incessant need to water down the issue, sometimes someone else needs the focus. That doesn't mean we forget you. If all lives matter to you, then tell me, why do you want to shut up some voices that speak out about black lives? This is an existing issue. It can't be minimized. So cut all this narrow-minded chatter. Black people deserve better because all lives matter. We're included in that. We shouldn't have to prove that we're just like you and not inherently bad, because whether the dog has black fur or white fur, we still know it's a lab. See, history repeats itself unless we actively choose to progress. 2016 can turn into the 60s if we keep treating some as less. We have to strive to prevent that so that this works out for the best, and I believe we're smart enough to pass this test. You are important. You are great too, and so please know that we do not hate you. It's just change for our people is long overdue. That's why I was heartbroken to watch people on the news claim that somehow Trayvon or Alton or Philando was to blame, or to hear that 911 call when the lady assured the police that Tamir probably just had a toy is all. That shouldn't have been Oscar Grant's last New Year. These black men should still be here, so we put a whole lot of shades of gray in this black and white. And it feels like such a dark time, but don't lose sight of the light. We have to remember the march didn't end with MLK. Just like racism didn't end on President Obama's inauguration day. So let's turn the other cheek, but don't look the other way, because this problem does not have to be here to stay. Call me crazy, call me naive, that's what the hopeless call those who believe. I believe it starts with acknowledging we live in a world with more racism than races. Meaning people won't declare an outright hatred, but they still see a black person walking down the street and turn in the other direction. A cop still sees a black man and feels he needs a gun for protection. From big issues to little issues, this dilemma is a big deal, and we can only fix it when we choose to get real. Get real that we live in a world where we're told curves look best on Iggy and Kim. What that says is, we like black features, but we only like it on them. Because the very things we're shamed for, they're praised for. Acting like serving you is all that we were made for, when really God stitched us just like He stitched you. Our lives matter to Him too, even if some don't want that to be true. We didn't ask to be black, just like you didn't choose to be white. But God chose to make us all different because He sees beauty in both the day and the night. To use a metaphor for our current plight, it's like how some of the best black rappers have less Grammys than Macklemore and Eminem, and we're supposed to pretend that it isn't shady that our recognition is slim. And that might seem irrelevant or superficial to some folk, but sometimes a serious hatred starts with what we take as a joke. I wonder if Miley knows that when we put our hands up, it's because there's a problem in the USA, where we get locked up in the USA, and we have to be careful what we can and can't say, but society tends to overlook the parts that aren't so fancy. We keep thinking that some grand gesture is going to make this disappear, but the solution isn't miles away. No, the solution is already here, because the solution is you and me, making a decision daily to always be praying, but also take action. To not let the casual spews of prejudice continue to get traction, to have the open dialogue and the tough conversations. Your talks around the dinner table could be what changes the nation. Change starts with talking, but can't end with talking. Otherwise, we'll just keep talking in circles. I challenge myself to be my sister and brother's keeper, whether they're black, brown, green, or purple. It's our commitment to treat everyone as equal that will prevent enslavement, the sequel. Because sometimes it can feel like they want to get rid of our people but keep our culture, pick away at our style, music, and clothes like vultures, and not all. There are some people of other races who genuinely care, and if there were more people like you, this problem wouldn't be here. So I'm thankful for those who see this as an issue we must all stop. This violence amongst ourselves and between the cops, we have to stop pretending. Too many precious lives have been ending because we won't come clean. We are all guilty of stereotyping, yet we are all on the same team. We were all included in Martin Luther King's dream. So when the news breaks of a life unfairly taken, I would hope every single person's heart would break and we'd come together to tackle injustice, because hate is not nearly as strong as love is. And because pigment never hurt anyone, people do. Our ancestors overcame, and we will too. This issue isn't easy and it won't change overnight, but we can continue to peacefully fight until freedom doesn't just ring, it blasts. And we can all take a deep breath and say, freedom at last.